In the 20th century, new programs were invented around the world, such as putting someone on the run and asking the whole world to catch them. They will also give him a prize. Clone Awards. It has become very popular over time that after World War II, the world will come together and create an organization that all countries will be members of. I mean the United Nations. They create Interpol, which is, for example, an international police force. In a way, cooperation between countries and these established organizations is increasing. That's why everyone wouldn't listen to them. They were putting music under surveillance. But some of them were also really criminals. Now it doesn't matter to us whether we are criminals or not. We want to know the most wanted people after World War II. We're starting over. Edward Snowden, but you should know that this gentleman was an employee of the National Security Agency, NSA, and had access to top secret information for his job. In this organization, he learns that the CIA and the CIA themselves are spying on the American people. That means they are somehow monitoring everyone. Snowden says to himself, "Doesn't the US Constitution prohibit these things? So why are they doing this?" This way, he convinces himself to reveal these issues, and he really does, and it explodes like a bomb in the world. After this happens, the US government immediately prosecutes Snowden for treason. But Snowden, knowing he would be arrested, had gone to Hong Kong so they wouldn't be able to catch him easily. It's unclear how, but Snowden ends up in Moscow, and for the first time since he was pursued, it becomes clear where he is. Russia also does not have an extradition treaty with the US government. That's why they give him asylum. On the other hand, the US State Department revokes Snowden's passport and citizenship. That means he becomes almost stateless. 12 years have passed since this date. He is wanted around the world, but it is unknown where in Russia he is living. Snowden is a controversial figure right now. A high percentage of Americans consider him a hero. Many consider him a traitor. So let's move on to another wanted American, Ted Kaczynski, known as the Unabomber. He was a brilliant student at Harvard University, but he got caught up in the CIA's first-person shooting program. They cooked his brain with their experiments and the drugs they gave Ted Kaczynski so that he became a psychopath. It got worse as he got older, and he wanted revenge on those who did this to him. When he gets older, he decides to target university professors, lecturers, and engineers. What about that? With bombs he makes himself. He was making bombs with very basic equipment. He was packing them. He would post it for anyone he wanted to kill. When he opened the box, it would explode and he would die. Tate Kaczynski worked so meticulously that he sent bombs to these people for decades, but they can't even figure out who is doing this. I mean, there was a scandal for the FBI and everyone was saying, "What happened to Dad?" If you were the FBI, why couldn't you find this? You might not believe that the FBI spent the most money to arrest Ted Kaczynski, and it still hasn't worked. In short, they can't catch it until we get to 1995, when he sends a letter to the New York Times and writes in it, "I am a Unabomber. I'm the one sending these bombs here and there, and I'm writing the reason why I do this." The New York Times will make this letter the front page of its newspaper early this morning. Now, who is one of the people who reads this newspaper? Ted Kaczynski's younger brother, who has no idea that his brother is a bomb. But he writes a letter to Ted and says that it seems like Ted wrote it because Ted Kaczynski is sending his brother a letter for Christmas. His brother compares his letters with the New York Times letter and sees a lot of similarities and says that he should call the FBI. He calls and says, "I'll do it, brother, a bomb." In short, the FBI goes to Ted's hideout in the middle of the forest, where they arrest both Ted and find all the evidence. So in the end, it was his brother who found Teddo, not the FBI. You won't believe that the FBI spent more than $50 million in the 20 years chasing Ted Kaczynski and couldn't do anything. That means you can understand that Kaczynski was extremely intelligent, but unfortunately his intelligence goes in a negative direction because of what they did with him. So let's go to Africa for another most wanted person. That is the country of Uganda. Jeff Kony is a warlord who founded an army in Uganda in 1987 called the Lord's Resistance Army. From the name he gave, it's clear he wasn't a man of means. This man has been running for 30 years in Uganda. What was the army doing? They were kidnapping children for the soldier. That means they would take boys as young as 7 and make them soldiers. They say that in the 30 years that this man has been in power, more than 66,000 children have been kidnapped. In short, after 18 years of Mr. Kenny's activity, in the year 205, we don't know what will happen. The International Criminal Court will suddenly put this man on the wanted list and place a $5 million bounty on his head. But despite this, nothing happens. 20 years have passed since this story. This man is still kidnapping children and holding Uganda hostage with the same soldiers he created. Joseph Kony is wanted, but no one is going to catch him. The next wanted terrorist is called Carlos Shogal. His real name is Ilich Ramirez Sanchez, a Venezuelan Marxist. Carlos Shogal was the most wanted terrorist of the 1970s and 1980s. Those who are getting older will definitely remember this. In 1975, Carlos attacked OPEC headquarters in Vienna and took all the oil ministers hostage. 2 very important oil ministers of that time were among the hostages: Jamshid Amozgar, Iranian oil minister, and Ahmad Zaki Yamani, Saudi oil minister. After this hostage-taking, Carlos announces that these 2 ministers should be executed. That is, a teacher and a wise man. Finally, they end up providing Carlos with a plane so he can go to Libya. But they tell different stories. They say the Saudi Arabian government gave him $20 million in cash so that he wouldn't kill anyone, let alone a mosquito. This is the start of Operation Jackal. Of course, the Jackal is not mute. Carlos the Jackal. After this operation, Carlos becomes the most wanted terrorist in the world. That means, in a way, all governments in the world want this, except for communist governments, or governments that have good relations with communists, like Libya. In short, Carlos always performs a bad operation. For example, a bombing in a restaurant where everyone is sitting and eating, or a bombing on a train. He only killed innocent people. That's to send a message. There is also a lot of activity in France. That means a lot of innocent people were killed in France. He regularly traveled freely in various communist countries, equipped himself, and went to cause sabotage in Western Bloc countries. One day it was in East Germany, one day in Romania, Yugoslavia, the Soviet Union, Cuba, Libya. Of course, Libya was not communist, but it supported the Eastern Bloc. After the Soviet Union collapsed and the so-called Eastern Bloc ended behind it, Carlos Shogal was almost left without a home. That's why just 3 years later, on August 14, 1994, he was arrested by French secret agents while carrying out an operation in Sudan. To take him to France, they anesthetize him, put him in a sack, and immediately fly him to Paris on a plane and take him to court. After several trial sessions, Carlos was sentenced to 3 life sentences for terrorist attacks and the killing of 12 people. He had killed many more people, but he didn't take responsibility for the ones who were in public places, and they couldn't prove it, but what was there was enough. He was given 3 life sentences. He has completed one life sentence and is serving his second. Of course, we were joking, it doesn't matter. He is in your prison forever. He is now 76 years old and still in the Sainte Catherine prison in Paris. So let's go to the man whose name almost everyone knows, Pablo Escobar. Escobar is the biggest trafficker in history because he distributed $420 million worth of cocaine worldwide every week. A lot of money, about $1.7 billion per month. Escobar wasn't just a smuggler, the file was very thick. Murder, kidnapping, killing a politician, killing a judge, crash a plane with innocent passengers on board, attack the cafe club. All of this is in the file. When we get to 1991, the US government puts a $50 million bounty on Pablo Escobar's head. One of the biggest awards in history. Even though they had set such a big prize, it still took 16 months to get it. But you don't get it, they will have to kill him. Because Escobar would not give up, he fought until his last breath. In the end, no one could get the prize because they killed him. Of course, there was no point in winning an award. Music Colombian police caught this with the help of the US Drug Enforcement Administration. Now that we've talked about the bounty market, cartels, and drugs, let's go a little further north to Mexico and get to know Mexico's biggest trafficker. Chapo was the leader of the Sinaloa cartel, and many say he was the successor to Pablo Escobar, meaning the next generation of Escobar. That's why the US government wanted to catch him from the very beginning. The Mexican government set a reward of $3.8 million for his capture. The US government said, go for it, and increased the reward to $8.8 million. In 2014, the Mexican police managed to arrest Chapo in Mazatlan, Mexico, and put him in Altiplano prison, which is a high-security prison in Mexico. It was like drinking water for Chapo, because within a year he planned his escape and successfully escaped. Interestingly, he makes an investment to escape. They buy a house near the prison and dig a tunnel through the floor of the house that is more than 1 kilometer long and under the prison. They reach a place where El Chapo only has to pick up 2 mosaics and go into the tunnel. Then they put a motorcycle on the track in the tunnel so that Chapo can quickly go that kilometer, go to the house, get in the car, and escape. He does the same thing, but a few months later he gets caught again. But this time the Mexican government told the United States, "Sir, we can't keep this guy because he's going to leave our prisons." That's why the United States takes over Chapo and sends him to the maximum security prison, IDX Florence in Colorado, which is the most secure prison in the United States and from which escape is impossible. He has been in this prison for 9 years and hasn't been able to do anything. My sentence is forever. It should be there as long as it lives. Another of the most wanted people is Adolf Eichmann, whom the Mossad had been looking for years to capture, and they finally succeeded. They captured him, took him to Israel, and sentenced him to death there. The next fugitive criminal, Saddam Hussein, suddenly disappeared after the US occupied Iraq. At that time, the US military put a $25 million bounty on Saddam's head. It doesn't take long for American soldiers themselves to find Saddam's hideout and drag him out of the ground. They'll take him to court. This trial lasts for 3 years, and he is finally sentenced to death by hanging. Another of these famous wanted criminals is Osama bin Laden, whom everyone knows. After the September 11th attacks, the US government offered a $25 million bounty for Osama bin Laden's head. He hides in the mountains of Afghanistan and Pakistan for 10 years until the CIA finally finds him and gives the US Navy SEALs the only special forces unit, a mission to kill him. These archers finally secretly make their way to Osama bin Laden's hideout and kill him there. Of course, it seems like the flood forces didn't have cameras because there are no photos or videos of this man being killed. They didn't even take pictures of the body. They said we threw the body into the ocean. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss our upcoming videos. Also, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.